All right, well, welcome. Good morning. Glad you're at New Break Church and OB. Glad you've already heard from pretty much some of our best people around here. So now it's just downhill from here. Now you just got me the rest of the time. But if I haven't met you, though, I'm Carter. I'm the pastor here. And just grateful to be here with you. And I love it. Feels like fall outside, man. This is great. It's so cool. And isn't it fun to just get to be the church? I love all the ways we get to do that, man. Friday night, it was so cool walking around. That's, by the way, about twice as many volunteers as we've ever brought. And thank you. So many of you donated candy. And we had like way more than we can lift. It's like a giant bag. And I'm like, what are we going to do with all this? We needed every bit of it. We gave away so much at that festival and then saved a little bit that we'll use this Thursday night as well. So thank you. It really, really was needed. Really went to good use. And also going to be fun to be the church with the Grace event. So hope you'll check it out. I'll be there. I love partnering with them. So, but I'm glad you're here. We're actually wrapping up this series. We spent 2 months talking through the wisdom of God. So now we'll start a new series next week, and we're not going to talk about wisdom anymore. I'm not going to say wise things anymore. Just kidding. You're like, it wasn't all that wise in the first place. But no, we'll always talk about the wisdom of God. But we've been talking about how to live our lives around the wisdom of God. And just kind of as we're at the end of this piece of it anyway, kind of learning from Proverbs and stuff, I thought I'd show you just a few kind of some final pieces of wisdom. Well, first, maybe kind of wisdom that we might find kind of out in the world. And then we'll kind of look at the wisdom from God's Word. But found a few just, there's some of those kind of motivational posters that people have hung around. And, just kind of those inspiring reminders that you need. So I found a few that maybe you haven't seen before. Here's a good one about wisdom. It says, a man can gain great wisdom from his mistakes unless he doesn't survive to do it. So just as a warning. Whoa, that was like scary. You're like, I don't want to watch a guy who's not going to make it. Here, this one's happy, all right? Just a nice flower. So sometimes the only difference between a budding genius and a blooming idiot is where you choose to take a stand. So, yeah, be wise, right? It'll make sense later. That's good. Here's some good wisdom on failure. If at first you don't succeed, destroy all evidence that you ever tried. So that's good. Don't say that you learned that at church. But I like this one. Today is the first day of the rest of your life, but so was yesterday, and look how that turned out. So. Oh, that's like a sad one, right? Now we feel discouraged. Here's one more on wisdom, though. Wisdom is not measured by the car that you choose, but whether it fits in your garage. Oh, yeah, that's bad. Wow, you have no sympathy for that guy, right? I think when somebody buys a Lamborghini, nobody feels bad. So that's all right. That's all right. That didn't work. But I want to talk about this idea of how do we really live our lives by God's wisdom, kind of foolproof our life. Because I believe it doesn't matter our age, our life stage, we're all looking for just a little more wisdom, a little more direction, even in the simplest decisions of our life. I was talking to this guy who, he went out to eat, just kind of a nicer restaurant, him and his wife. And, as the waiter's asking for their order, do you want super salad? What entree do you want? What drink do you want? And each thing that him and his wife both would say, the waiter would always answer back, good choice. Excellent choice, sir. Excellent choice, right? You probably had that happen, right? Well, he finally asked what I've never had the guts to ask, and he said, do you ever tell anybody bad choice? Right? Do you ever just tell them bad choice? And he said, well, no, actually our manager trained us. And he said that most people actually are so uncertain about what they want to order and so afraid of ordering the wrong thing that he wants us to affirm them by just always saying, good choice, good choice. So they teach them a list of affirming words to memorize so that they can do this for people. So I don't want to burst your bubble that a waiter doing that to you is just trained to memorize it. I'm sure they mean it from their heart for you. But I just thought that was pretty interesting to think, even when it comes to the choice of soup or salad in our lives, we're so kind of at a loss for wisdom that it's like we need waiters to be our therapists in that, right? Just tell me I'm doing the right thing. And so we can look for wisdom everywhere. I don't think we ever outgrow really the search for wisdom. I do hope that we get wiser as we get older, but we're always seeking that. And what we've been saying this whole series, God wants to give it to us. We've talked about James, Jesus' own brother, in his letter, James 1, verse 5. If you haven't memorized it yet, it's definitely worth your time. And he says, if anyone asks God for wisdom, he always gives it generously. generously. And so we'll keep praying for wisdom, asking for wisdom, learn about wisdom as much as we can. We've been learning from the book of Proverbs in the Bible. It's called the Book of Wisdom. I've made the challenge multiple times for you guys. Hey, be reading through Proverbs this whole month. And honestly, it's been cool to hear that a lot of you said, I'm trying it. I've been doing it. It's been really cool. I'm seeing stuff in there, applying it, read it every day. So if that's you, good job, air high five. If that's not you, hey, it's not too late though. It's not too late. You can get in. It doesn't matter if we're going to talk about Proverbs here or not. You starting your day by reading something out of Proverbs is always going to be worth your time. There's 31 Proverbs, so you could start it on November 1st, right? And just kind of read one a day, even though there's only 30 days. But you'll get most of it in there. So Proverbs, Book of Wisdom, written by a guy named Solomon, many call wisest man who ever lived. Not a perfect man. If you read his story, messy life, did a lot of unwise things as well, fell into a lot of temptation, but also did a lot of wise things and sought God and asked God constantly for wisdom, and God honored that. And he ends up speaking through Solomon wisdom that gets recorded for us, even here in 2019, to get to learn from 3 different books in the Old Testament that Solomon wrote. And one of them was the Book of Proverbs. And he has got great stuff in here about how to shape our lives around the wisdom of God. And so, again, whether you've been a Jesus follower for a long time, or you're brand new to it, or you're not even sure where you stand on it yet, still kind of making your decision, really hope you tune in. Because this wisdom is really wisdom for everyone in their life. And it's just great, great wisdom for how to live from the God who knows how life works. So Proverbs 9, he does a little different. He personifies wisdom as a woman. So that's pretty smart, since women are generally wiser than men. So Solomon knew that. And so he's like, all right, so wisdom's like a woman. And so he actually does a whole contrasting thing here in chapter 9. He says, wisdom, when you're living a wise life, you're kind of like a woman who lives like this. When you're living an unwise, a foolish, a folly life, he would say, then you're living like a woman who lives like this. So kind of compare and contrast. So we'll read it. You can kind of follow along here. It's a little bit longer than we usually read, but I hope you get a lot out of it. He starts like this. He says, wisdom has built her house. She set up its 7 pillars. Why 7? That number is used usually in the Bible to refer to the number of perfection. And so she's setting it up according to how God meant for things to be. 7 pillars. She has prepared her meat. She has mixed her wine. She has also set her table. She sent out her servants, and she calls from the highest point of the city, let all who are simple come to my house. To those who have no sense, they don't have any wisdom yet. She says, come and eat my food. Drink the wine I've mixed. Leave your simple ways, and you will live. Walk in the way of insight. And it's cool that he uses wisdom. His picture for wisdom is the idea of inviting people to a dinner party. Right? Hey, come, grow in wisdom. Come sit around my table. And we talk a lot here that God sees that metaphor a lot about being around the table together and connecting and eating together. Now he changes tone a little bit. He starts going into like giving us some kind of wise advice. He says, whoever corrects a mocker, somebody who's always mocking things, right? Someone who's just kind of prideful. He says, you're inviting insults. Whoever rebukes the wicked incurs abuse. They're just going to get on your case for trying to do it. It says, don't rebuke mockers or they will hate you, but rebuke the wise and they will love you. Instruct the wise, and you know what happens to them? They get even wiser still. Teach the righteous, and they add to their learning. And then he says, verse 10, this is a verse a lot of people memorize, or sometimes the only verse they know out of the book of Proverbs. So it's kind of right at the crux of the whole thing. He says, the fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom. And that word fear, well, that's a whole different sermon, but just real quickly, that fear of the Lord isn't about I'm afraid of God, I'm scared of him, it's someone who's going to hurt me, who I can't get close to. It's fear as like reverence and awe. Just like, like you'd be nervous if you were in the presence of like your favorite celebrity. You'd just be really self-conscious all of a sudden, like just this awe, like I don't even know how to respond. He says, you want to know where wisdom starts? It starts by recognizing who God is. He's so much bigger than me. He's so much smarter than me. And he understands life. He says that's the beginning of wisdom, is the awe of who God is. He says the knowledge of the Holy One is understanding. For through wisdom your days will be many. Many years will be added to your life. If you are wise, your wisdom will reward you. But if you're a mocker, you know what? You alone will suffer. Now he contrasts it with someone who lives kind of by folly. He says, folly is an unruly woman. She's simple and knows nothing. She just sits at the door of her house, on a seat at the highest point of the city, calling out to people who pass by, who go straight on their way. Let all who are simple come to my house. Well, that's what the wise woman said too, right? But here's what's different. Let all who are simple come to my house. To those who have no sense, she says, stolen water is sweet. Food eaten in secret is delicious. But little do they know, the people that are invited, little do they know that the dead are there, that her guests are actually deep in the realm of the dead. Yikes. It's always fun when the Bible passage I finish reading ends with the word dead, right? It just feels so ominous. I guess it's Halloween themed or something. But right? It just said, it's not the same. You're getting invited to 2 different houses in your life, 2 different dinner parties. Which one are you going to? One of them's full of life and wisdom. The other one's full of deadness. Not death, like God says, I'm going to smite you, right? Like dead. You know what deadness is. Just feeling dead relationships, dead in my career, dead in my hope, or my value, my self-worth, my purpose, my joy, my peace. I mean, you name it. All different areas of our life can feel like they're dying or dead. Which dinner party do we want to go to? Right? Pretty cool. That's how Solomon set it up. And here's what he points out in there, and I just hope that God will speak at least some of this into you, that wisdom starts with this idea, with the idea of just being proactive and not reactive. That's great wisdom for our lives. If you've ever read 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, written by a great Christian business guy, Stephen Covey, the 7 Habits, the number 1 habit is just 2 words, be proactive. And he's a Christian, so he took that out of Solomon, out of Proverbs. About being proactive, I like to say that, listen, we never drift in good directions. You're not just going to sort of drift and sort of, accidentally fell into an amazing career. Wow, how did this work? Right? I just sort of drifted into incredible marriage. I didn't even have to work at it. We don't just drift into the things that we want in our life. It's all about being proactive. And you see the difference in the 2 women that Solomon's comparing. The first woman, she's building her house, setting up the pillars, preparing the food, preparing her wine. Right? See, all the proactive side. The unwise life, she's just sitting out front, waiting to see who passes by. Just to react to life. But wisdom is about being proactive. I would say as a side note, I know there's a little phrase we throw around a lot in Christian circles. And sometimes I like it, and there's some days I don't. But I think we just have to understand what it really means is when we kind of say, hey, just let go and let God. That's not in the Bible, by the way, but it's just become a cliche, right? Let go and let God. Actually, it's in 2 Opinions 5, which is one of my favorite chapters. I quote from there a lot. 2 Opinions 5:3. That's where my grandma quoted from when she says, cleanliness is next to godliness. That's also where you'll find that Bible verse. But anyway, I got off track there. Sorry. And, but yeah, wisdom. And I don't even know what I was saying. No, so that idea of let go and let God, incredibly wise advice. When it comes to the things we're anxious about, right? Things I'm like, I just don't know I'm going to fix this, how to control this. And so people say, listen, just let go and let God do what he does. And God does encourage us to pray about things we're anxious about. Where it doesn't apply is let go and let God, I'm just going to sit out in front of my house and just kind of see what God does. God challenges us. He calls you to be a part of the answer to your prayers. There's a part for us to play and a part for God to play. He likes us to work together because he's always about the relationship. And so part of being proactive means that, I actually take steps to do the things that God wants me to do. You know who's really good at that I've really learned from a lot, especially since living here in San Diego, is from military families. I didn't grow up around any military. None of my parents or grandparents were in it, and I just didn't meet a lot of them in the Midwest. But being here, made many friends with lots of great military families. Worst part is having to say goodbye all the time. Never gets easier, but I love meeting them. I love when they get to stick around. But here's what I've never known. A lot of you knew this already, but it's just new to me, is they're so proactive. Like now, when I meet people here and they'll come into church, be like, all right, let me know, how do I get in a life group? How do I start serving? How can I plug my kids in? And now I start to learn. They're probably military because they've learned, right? Because they understand this kind of urgency of we don't have time to just sort of drift around for a couple years. I mean, if we only got 3 years here, and they'll often be very proactive. We're going to make friends. We're going to find a place for spiritual growth. That's incredible wisdom. We can all learn from that, kind of being proactive. So my challenge for you would be, what is God waiting on you for? We don't think about that. I don't know about you. I'm always thinking about the stuff I'm waiting for God on. And I'll be honest, there's multiple things I'm praying right now in kind of other people's lives and some direction, some answers of prayer, some staffing things we've talked about that I need in my own life. And so I'm sitting around waiting for God a lot, waiting for God to answer. Maybe you feel that. And and we do have to do that sometimes. But where in your life right now is God saying, well, I'm waiting on you? If you'll take the step, then I can finally show you the answer, right? What is he waiting for you to do? Jesus called him out, and he got to go actually see what it's like to walk on the water. I imagine just stepping off the OB pier and just be able to walk right on the water. But the only way he ever got to experience it wasn't he just sat back and let go and let God and watch God do his thing. He had to actually step out of the boat and do it, and then he got to see God's answers to his prayer. So my challenge for you, what is God waiting on you right now for? And you don't have to have all the answers. You can say, I don't know all God's plans and direction for my life. Yeah, but what's the next thing that you know he's calling you to do, and he's just waiting for you? Because wisdom is about being proactive, taking those steps. Wisdom, living God's way, part of being proactive is being proactive to help other people. I hope you see that around here. That's why we're trying to help wherever we can, whether it's girls rescued from human trafficking or at schools, military, really anywhere God will open the door. Because a life built on God's wisdom is always a life focused on other people. Jesus, of course, modeled that for us. And I know we know that, but I don't think we really believe it, right? We've all heard and could say, yeah, I know, better to give than to receive. Better make your life about other people, not just building your own stuff. It's still really counterintuitive. Right? Because at the end of the day, it's like, but if I really want to get the kind of life that I want, I need to make sure I'm taking care of me and mine and building my kingdom and make sure I got everything in place for me. It feels very counterintuitive to let go of all that and use my money or my time or my energy or my thoughts or my prayers for other people. But that's God's wisdom. I think it works. Let me just ask you this. You can just answer for you, but you think of people that you know in your life. I don't know if there's anyone you know that you would say is probably mostly kind of self-centered, pretty selfish. Don't say their name out loud. Definitely don't elbow them if they're sitting next to you. Just look straight ahead, eyes on me. Just kidding. And but you think about those people. Again, you can answer for you. You might know some of the exceptions. The ones I know who are like that, honestly, they're not that happy. Really, right? Little moments. They're not building the kind of life they really want. They either find that stuff not as fulfilling or I just always need more. But you think about the people you know that are just always such a blessing to other people. Aren't those people you just want to hang out with? You just feel like, I don't know, just when I'm around you, they're just always thinking of other people. And they often have even less, but they just seem to have the stuff that we're looking for. Just that contentment, and that joy, that purpose. There's a reason why, because that's how God wired things up to work. And so no matter how counterintuitive it is, the more we make our lives focused on others, the more we in turn find the things we are looking for. You find more purpose, more joy and hope, peace, direction, all those kinds of things. That's why Solomon, you see kind of the difference between the two dinner parties here, right? One is it's all about generous and sharing. She says, come eat my food. It's cool that she's the one who prepared it. Come eat my food, have my wine. Some of you like going to wine parties. And she's like, come to this stuff, right? I prepared it. I share it. Generous, open table. The other one, it's all about stealing. You know what stealing is, right? I take what I can get when I can get it. It's for me. It's about doing it in secret. And so that's a big difference. The idea of, is my life pouring into others, or is it about taking and just building on my own? And so Solomon says that's the difference in wisdom. And part of make my life focus on others is learning to be someone that's actually, life-giving to other people. And again, I'm guessing you already know some of those people in your life. Just the room gets better once they enter it. It just feels like, and there's someone who, when you see them coming, you actually kind of want to cross paths with them. We sometimes call it the parking lot test. That I know it doesn't sound very nice, but I'm just being honest. It says, when you pull into the parking lot, let's say at work, and you see their car there, and what's your first gut reaction? It's like, oh, they're here, right? Maybe I'll go in the back door or something, right? If it's, or is it like, awesome, they're here, right? Like, what is that? How do we be, is that the kind of people that we are? People want to be around us, inspiring, life-giving. Or are we known as, kind of always pessimistic, cynical, right? When everybody else is saying, this country's going to hell, this world's going to hell, right? OB is just a mess and the worst it's ever been. And are we the first one to jump in and go, yeah, you're right? Is that it? Are we just kind of the cynical, right? Kind of the speaking, kind of criticism, kind of drawing people down? Are we the life-giving kind? I felt like I needed to give you a really specific example so you could see it. So try not to be like Debbie.
Good morning. Welcome to the Mickey's Breakfast Jamboree. My name is Billiam, and I'll be serving you today. You guys here on a special occasion?
Well, we're here on that new Magical Gatherings family package. Got the whole Matusik clan down from Ohio, right, guys? Say hi.
Hi! Well, great. Let me tell you Mickey specials today. We've got steak and eggs served with some home fries and Mickey waffles.
Woo! I love me some steak and eggs.
Ever since they found mad cow disease in the U.S., I'm not taking any chances. It can live in your body for years before it ravages your brain.
You're enjoying your day, everything's going your way, and along comes Debbie Downer. Always there to tell you about a new disease, a car accident or killer bees. A beggar to spare you, Debbie, please, but you can't stop Debbie Downer.
Don't be Debbie Downer, all right? You know who you are. No, don't do that. She is funny, but not in real life, right? Just kind of, we're the ones who drag down, or are we lifting people up? I wonder if Solomon had her in mind when he wrote Proverbs 11:25. I've always loved this one because it's such a great word that he uses. We don't really use it that much, but I love this word. He says, refreshed. He says, try to refresh other people. And then I kind of think about that, right? There's certain people you hang out with, and you're like, I do feel more refreshed after being around them. So it's so cool. He said, be someone that refreshes other people. And then remember, again, even though it's counterintuitive, in turn, you will be refreshed too. Isn't that who Jesus was? And there's something that drew people to want to be around Jesus. Don't for a second ever believe or start to picture Jesus as this just boring preacher. Just this kind of, he's like seminary professor, just trying to make sure everybody's theology is correct. Or that he's just judgmental guy, walk around just pointing out everything everybody does wrong, which he actually never did except inside the church. And so, don't picture him like that, because there's a reason that people wanted to follow Jesus. They were drawn to him. They didn't even know why. Even the ones, think about this, people that disagreed with him the most. Think of your harshest critics, different political party, different religion, different sports team, whatever it is for you. And imagine, but they're still drawn to you and just want to be around you. And Jesus had something where children, women, men, super rich, super poor, blue collar and white collar, super smart, super simple, and they all just drawn to him. Are we the person that makes the room better? One of the pastors I like to read from wrote this. He said, greatness is that when you leave the room, people have more hope than they did before you were even there. I thought, that's cool, right? But there's something about you that just gives people kind of hope. Just kind of have that with them. And when we focus on refreshing other people, in turn, it turns around and it really refreshes us. And God can do something powerful in us when we choose. Wisdom chooses to be kind of that life-giving, that inspiring kind of presence. And so Solomon says a big part of building a life of wisdom, it's focusing on others. The part that's focused on ourselves is the part that's about how am I going to continue to learn and grow. Not just sort of getting complacent, sort of kind of floating through life. Again, the idea kind of drifting through, but what am I doing to constantly kind of learn and grow? Again, you see in how he contrasts that. Those who are always looking for more insight, wisdom, and understanding versus just being content to just kind of be, it's going to be simple. It's kind of, we sort of say ignorance is bliss. It's like, yeah, I mean, it is in some ways, but I mean, it's not a great way to live, though, And so Solomon calls us to this idea of being a lifelong learner. seeking to constantly learn and grow and in all different ways. You can see kind of the difference here. He talks about, when you instruct people that are wise, they actually become wiser. You know why? Because they always want to learn. When you teach the righteous, that means people who have right living. You know what happens? You actually add to their knowledge because they want to learn. Fools, on the other hand, he says, they delight in airing their own opinions. I didn't know they had Facebook back then. Cause I don't really know what else he's talking about. I mean, isn't that why that exists? So we can delight in airing our own opinions? Right? But he talks about the idea of just being a learner, a lifelong learner. And I believe part of learning, part of it is, well, we've talked a lot this whole series, I mean, for sure, learning from the Bible. So I'll say it one more time. Get in the Bible, get God's Word, get it in you. That's always the number one source to get wisdom. But the other ways to grow in learning, one is learning more about ourselves, how we're wired up. That's one that I'm passionate about, and my wife's super into it as well, is just really want to say, how did God wire me up? We read Psalm 139, God knit you together in your mother's womb, and you have this unique set of kind of gifts and personality. So how did God knit me together, wire me up? Because the more I know that, the more I can walk in my real calling and be who I'm meant to be. So I love studying that. And, we're fortunate to be alive in a day and age when there's so many kind of tools out there for that. Well, maybe not all the Facebook quizzes and BuzzFeed quizzes as much, although there's some, right? But just all different tools. A lot of great spiritual gifts tests. There's one where you can take, spiritual gifts, one based on like Ephesians 4 and kind of these fivefold gifts you can take. And then there's other ones that aren't from the Bible, but they're also still just super valuable. I mean, they help me understand how I'm wired up. In fact, I've walked our staff team here. We've done DISC and Enneagram, Strengths Finder, Myers-Briggs. I mean, all that kind of stuff. God can use any of it to teach us how are we wired up. The more I have that, the more self-aware I am, and then the more I'm walking in wisdom. The other great way to learn wisdom about ourselves is learning from our own mistakes. That's a huge one, right? Actually, learning from our mistakes. When we don't learn from them, then we just end up repeating the same stuff. You've heard that saying, I think it actually comes from Einstein originally, but if you keep doing the same thing over and over but expecting different results, right? That's the definition of insanity. Solomon says it not quite as nice, and I don't mean to spoil your lunch appetite, but Solomon just comes right out. He says, as a dog returns to its vomit, that's what it's like when fools keep returning to their folly. I mean, that's a pretty graphic picture, right? It's like I just threw up, and now I'm just going to go over and spend a bunch of time smelling it and hanging out over there. He says, yep, that's what you're like when you keep walking back to your same mistakes over and over again. So he just comes right out and says it like that. I need to keep learning from my mistakes. One of the ones that takes me a while to learn is I often think that I can just do more than I can. I just try to pack too many things in because I just kind of want to say yes to everything. And so I have to keep learning from that mistake. And sometimes God just has to give me a really stark reminder about it. Earlier this year, I did somebody's wedding. I got to do a wedding. It wasn't a close friend. It was more a favor for a friend. But I did a wedding. It was on Sunset Cliffs. It was my first time getting to do one there. And so I was going to do it in the afternoon, but I really wanted to go visit my brothers in L.A. In the morning. And, I mean, hey, the drive from L.A. to San Diego is always easy, right? I mean, it's just like smooth sailing down the 5. I mean, it's like the country roads I'm used to in Iowa. So, I mean, what's the problem? That's what smart people would actually know that, but not me. So I'm like, no, I can do it. I even padded an extra hour. So, I mean, come on. I gave an extra hour. And so I go visit them. I'm doing the drive back, and it's like worse than usual Saturday traffic. I know we all say that. But no, I'm telling you, it really was. Later that night in the news, they said because of the super bloom in the desert, like all the interstates were packed because everybody wanted to go see it. So packed. Then the traffic's not moving at all. And I'm just watching the clock. I'm going, I'm not going to make it. And here's the worst part. Since I don't know them well, I didn't have the bride and groom's phone number. I mean, I have no way to tell them, but all I can picture is them just standing there on the cliffs looking sad, wondering, where's the pastor, right? We can't get married now. I'm like, literally, what are they going to do? Pack everything up and try to reschedule someday? And you know that panic feeling when you're just stuck in traffic and we're not moving. I get to Oceanside and it's not moving, and I'm just watching the clock. And I don't know if you ever wondered, I mean, do pastors, they have so much faith, do they ever do like a desperate foxhole prayer? Oh, I totally did. I'm just like... God, I promise I'll do anything you want. Just please help me make it. I said, can you just like part the traffic like the Red Sea? I mean, aren't I like Moses? Please just do something. Because I just felt so bad. And I'm watching it, super stressed, man. Just my whole body is tense. And I'm just watching the clock. And God did open it up a little bit by the end. And, I get into town with like 10 minutes left. But, I'm in shorts and a T-shirt. So stop at the house, put on a full suit, quicker than my wife's ever seemed. Like, whoa, how'd you do that? And I'm just instantly transformed. Speed over. I followed the law, kind of, and sped over to Sunset Cliffs. And I didn't have time. I scheduled time to actually eat lunch or drink water, which I didn't do. And so I'm in a huge hurry. I showed up, so I did get there on time to walk down the middle right as they're ready to start. And no joke, as I'm walking up, I'm literally like the closest I've ever been to fainting. And all of a sudden I realize, I'm like, because I haven't eaten or drank anything. And I'm like, I hope nobody sees like that my eyes are closing. So then I start desperate prayer number 2, just like, God, please just don't let me pass out till after the ceremony's over. And I'll do my short, quick version. Just let it be like, and I'm just praying. I mean, seriously, I did not know if I was going to be able to make the whole wedding. I hope I said things that made sense. And the whole time I'm just, trying to just kind of keep it together. And then, and I did make it through the wedding. It was very beautiful, by the way. So you're welcome. But no. It was, and little known about pastors, this isn't a complaint, it's an FYI, should you ever choose to get married, that you don't always think about, is that the pastor has to stand around another hour and a half or 2 hours to sign the wedding license if you're going to go get your photos done. I'm just saying. So all I wanted to do was go home and lay on my bed, but I have to wait for the license. But first they do the photos, and then the toast, and then the introductions. And so I'm just sitting in like the lobby of the Sunset Cliffs Inn, and they're bringing me Gatorade and like granola bars and stuff, and I did stay around and barely made it. I had to walk upstairs then to sign license and all this. But anyway, I made it, and God showed me, hey, you got to learn from your mistakes. Stop trying to just like fit everything in all the time and just try to like squeeze all this stuff. So I promise if I ever get to do any of your weddings, I won't schedule anything the same day. I have learned my lesson. I stay in town. I keep the whole day free. I remember to eat my meals. And, but we got to learn from that stuff, right? Because otherwise I'll just walk around and just kind of repeat the same mistake again. So a huge part of not returning to our vomit like a dog is, that's not a very poetic way to say it, but it was Solomon's way, right? Is learning to always just seek wisdom anywhere I can learn. Learn from me, learn from others. That's the other place to learn from, because like pastor just up the coast in Orange County, Rick Warren, like he says, listen, you'll never have enough time in your life to possibly make all of the mistakes to learn from, so you need to learn from other people's mistakes too. And that's some good wisdom there. You got to learn from other people's mistakes too. The other way of learning from our mistakes, this is way less fun. You ready? You're going to dread this about as much as I do. Is learning how to receive correction. Don't you love when a conversation starts with, so we need to talk, right? And you're just like, that's it, I'm out. I don't want to do this, right? Just like, that's just a terrible way, because you just know they're about to give you something that you don't want to hear, and it's probably a big correction, right? Just none of us get excited to hear, like people giving us advice, and what you should do, and trying to speak correction into us. I don't know if I'm allowed to say it in church, but honestly, I kind of hate it. I really just don't like when it happens. But it's so valuable, such an important piece of wisdom. That's why Solomon, he hits on this one a lot, by the way. This is one that isn't just sort of one obscure verse in Proverbs. This thing he hits over and over and over. And he talks about the difference, right? That unwise people, the mockers, what happens when you correct them? They hate you. I mean, he just comes right out and says, they hate it. People that are wise, they love it. They welcome it. Right? The way of a fool seems right to them. Hey, I'm always right in my own eyes, right? But the wise know that they have blind spots, and other people know things they don't know. One of the times I had to learn from correction, since I've already thrown myself under the bus for you, I can do it again. At the last church that I worked at, we wanted to throw a volunteer appreciation dinner for all our volunteers, and we thought it'd be cool if us as the staff team we like cooked the food, and then we were going to serve it to them kind of as the waiters the whole time, let them hang out. So we were doing that, and I'm just walking around meeting everybody. Then I thought, you know what? I want to really show my team that I'm a servant leader, that I'm in it with them. I don't want them to just be sweating while I'm just hanging out here. So I thought that I was making this great, wise choice, and I said, all right, I'm going to help you guys. So I helped in the kitchen. I'm serving the food with them the whole time, and the night went great. Felt good about it. Someone from my team comes to my office the next Tuesday, and they said, so we need to talk. It's like, dang it, there we go again, right? And like, I want to talk about the volunteer appreciation event. I'm like, awesome, I know, it went so great, didn't it? And they said, you totally blew it. And I'm like, what? Like, those showed you I'd be like servant leader. I was in it with you. We all did it together. I said, no, like the whole point was all the people that were there were looking forward to you coming around to each table and getting to sit with them, thank them, appreciate them, listen to them, get to talk with them. You spent all your time running around doing this, and they all missed that whole part of it. Plus, then for our team, it felt like you just didn't trust us to do it right. Oh, that's tough, right? So hearing that hurts. And I have a choice of how to respond, right? Part of me wants to respond with, well, you're idiots, and you're wrong because I was showing you how to be a servant leader, and it's better for me to be in the trenches with you, and so don't worry about it. I did it the right way. Yeah, I kind of felt like saying that, but the receive correction part is asking, are they right? Like, is there some wisdom in that? And I really did. I mean, God really had to get my attention and speak to me in that. There are times to be, servant leader, but then there's times to just do the things you're called to do, I mean, right when service ends, I can go clean the bathrooms just to show you all I'm a servant leader, but maybe more valuable in that time is to actually be available to pray with people and talk to them, right? So, I mean, you got to use some wisdom. And so correction doesn't feel good, but it makes me better. And so that's a hard challenge there from Solomon, right? Do you love correction or do you hate it? And if you don't love it, I don't love it yet. But I'm getting closer, though. Right? Getting closer. I really kind of hear that question more as, am I defensive in it? So defensive. Our defense wall just come around. Am I defensive in it? Am I a blame shifter? Just every other excuse, blame everybody else? Or am I humble and teachable enough? Maybe not love it, but I can get close to that, right? Start to like it. Start to know God uses it in our life. I'll show you a couple more Proverbs just so you get this idea that Solomon hits us over and over and over again. Proverbs 15, Proverbs 12, over and over. He's talking about people that love discipline, correction, right? It says they keep adding so much wisdom to their lives. And people that don't, well, now he just calls them stupid, right? So, I mean, he just comes right out and says that. So, which way is it? How do you respond? Part of the wisdom God's teaching me and how to respond when we hear kind of correction from people, feedback. Remember, not all feedback is pushback, right? A lot of people are just giving you feedback. They're not pushing on you. Not all feedback is pushback. Here's part of what I've learned, so if it's helpful to you. When you get feedback or pushback or sort of criticism or correction from people, here's kind of the three things I try to do. I thought I'd remember it as like ATM. But the A is just assume their best intentions. That's hard to do because instantly we want to go, oh, they're just here to correct me. They want to take over my job. They want to prove they're better tany me. Who do they think they are? Right? Does any of that sound familiar? Assuming their best intentions is maybe they actually want to help me. I know that's not always true, but let's assume that sometimes it is. So start with that. Maybe what they're about to speak, maybe God, because he often, since we don't hear him speak out loud, he loves to speak through other people. So maybe he actually does want me to hear this. So assume they have good intentions or God intentions, that maybe God's going to use it. The second piece, though, is take what they say. Take it to God. Take it to God. For sure, sometimes people give you something that isn't godly correction. It's just outright criticism, and they're just being jerks, right? I mean, sometimes people just say stuff to you, not even true, criticize. It hurts, and it's not true, but that doesn't mean we just write all of it off. So when I get feedback from people and criticism from people and correction, I've really had to learn, especially in this role, really I take it to God, and here's what I say, God, is this true about me? Is this true about me, or do they just think it's true? Was that you speaking, or is that just them? Right? And if it's just them kind of being a jerk, then hopefully, since we started with good intentions, as we took it to God, instead of just firing back, well, those idiots, right? Instead, it can be maybe I'll actually pray for them. Well, God, I don't know what's broken in their life right now. Right? They're feeling this, but I pray for some healing in them, some grace. And then if it is something that God says, yeah, it is true of you, actually, like it was for me with my team back then the third piece, the M, would be, well, then make myself better because of it. Use it, do something with it. Make myself better because of it. So when we hear it, it's about, taking it to God and asking if it's from him. Another great proverb, as Solomon says, he says, wounds from a friend can be trusted way more than flattery from an enemy. Right? And you think about it, I'd much rather hear flattery than correction, but which one's more helpful in my life? And when it's wounds, when it's correction from a friend, it still hurts in the moment. I was hurt in that moment, but it's worth it in the end. It made me a better leader. And flattery from an enemy just doesn't really get us anywhere. So anyway, Solomon hits on that over and over, the idea, will we be humble and teachable enough? Obviously, Jesus modeled humility big time for us. Here's the last piece. We'll go quick with this one, but this is kind of the last one to kind of get out of this, is remember, being proactive, but also just constantly remembering you actually do get to choose what your life is going to be like. All right? Well, I don't get to choose all things that happen in my life. A lot of that is out of our control. And some of you are in situations right now that just out of your control. And I know that you've gone through painful things that I would know even nothing about. I've never been in your shoes. We can't control what happens to us. But you get to choose how you will react and who you will be. How are you going to react to all that's happened in your life? Who are you becoming even in spite of that or because of that? Right? That's the part we get to choose. Otherwise, I'm just in victim mentality. I'm drifting. I'm reactive, right? Life's just happening to me, and I'm just this helpless victim. But wisdom knows that I get to choose, though, my reaction every time, who I'm going to be every time. So I love Solomon's reminder here. I'm glad he put it here in Proverbs 9. To me, it's a great way to even just kind of wrap up this whole series, is when he says, when you're wise, your wisdom will reward you. It'll reward you. It'll pay off. Even when wisdom tells us the right thing to do and the right thing ends up being the hard thing to do. I was talking to somebody this morning, like, man, I know what I was supposed to do, but it meant I was going to be in for a lot of hard stuff. But it's going to be worth it. So just know these words, get them in your heart and your soul. If you're wise, your wisdom will reward you. And when we're not, then he says, you alone are the one that's gonna suffer. And it's been so powerful to see all the ways that God rewards kind of the wisdom in our lives. I look back at a time I had right before being here, a job that I loved, and it was related to this career, and a job that I loved and loved the people there, and then the place I was working for just decided just kind of go a different direction. It felt pretty out of the blue and pretty unfair, and so really kind of everything in me, just because, when you get hurt and kind of the loyalty part of things, just wanted to really just kind of fire back. I really had the opportunity to kind of badmouth this place and kind of turn people against them, and that actually felt pretty fair if I were to do that. But I really had to wrestle with God through it, so this isn't me saying that I always get it right. But this was a time where God just kept pushing me with just, hey, listen, wisdom is just walk with integrity, walk with humility in it. And so I did, and tried to honor the place and just stay true just to kind of who I am. And God says wisdom will reward you, and he has. I mean, it has. Even though I could look back on that time as a painful time in my life, it's not a time full of regret, though. I'm not up here telling you, man, I blew it. I totally trashed this place or hurt the kingdom of God. I honestly tell you, what? I walked with integrity. And I still have a lot of friends back there that say, man, you really had a lot of integrity and humility in that. God rewards your wisdom. He'll reward it. It's worth it. It's worth it. Worth walking in the ways that he leads us. So that's my final challenge to you in this series anyway, is about when it comes to wisdom, are we making the kind of choices that make us look more like Jesus? Because all these things we talked about, that's who he is, right? Life-giving, inspiring, focused on others, proactive. humble, full of humility. That's who he is. And so for you, even the choices, not even the big decisions, but all the decisions you're making all week long, the ones that look more like Jesus is always the wiser way to go. Because he's the one who knows how life is meant to work. I don't want to waste time going to a doctor who didn't bother to study how the human body works. And I don't want to go to a mechanic who doesn't understand how my specific car works. And why would I look for wisdom in my life without going to the one who understands how life works, how humanity works, and how you and I were meant to live. And so that's what we get to choose. We get to make the wise choices about how we're going to react, about what we're going to choose, about who we're going to be, And so that's the thought I wanted to leave you with from Dallas Willard. If you want some great intellectually challenging, good theology stuff, he's written a ton of great stuff. But he says, the most important thing in your life isn't actually what you do, but it's who you become, because that's what you're going to take with you into eternity. So who are you becoming? Are you becoming wiser? Are you becoming more like Jesus? Who are we becoming? He wants to help in that. That's why he gives wisdom generously, and he gives his grace generously. So let's pray together. Let's go ask God for some wisdom. God, we thank you. We thank you that for the promise of James 1:5, that whenever we ask for wisdom, you give it generously without finding fault. I thank you for all the ways you're speaking wisdom into us in here, through Proverbs, through being in your word. I pray, God, for each of us, just keep teaching us. Everyone who's here, there's a lot of places they could be today, so we're at least open enough to hear from you that we came here. And so I pray that every time we're here, we're learning wisdom from you. Every time we're in our life group, we're hearing from you. We pray you'd speak into us through other people. Our peers, our parents, even our kids, even sometimes our enemies, people we disagree with. If we're humble enough, we can really learn something that you have for us. So we pray, God, for that humility, that teachability, God. Instead of always doubting everybody else's motives, we're just always asking, is this what you're trying to say to me, God? And we pray right now for wisdom and clarity, especially for any of us that are really struggling right now with confusion. Maybe a big decision that's looming, it's given anxiety. Maybe just confused, we don't understand what you're doing, or we don't know the way out. Maybe we're finding confusion, God, needing wisdom in an addiction, God, or in our finances. Maybe in our own marriage, or as parents, parenting's hard. Maybe in our dating life, that's so hard. We need a lot of wisdom. In our school life, or in our careers, God, and just wondering, where are you calling next? What do you have for me? So many areas, God, but you are the God of wisdom. You never run out, and you're always ready to offer it to us. And so, humbly, God, we surrender to you. We seek your wisdom. We pray, make us look more like you. Help us build our lives on the foundation of your wisdom. It's in your name we seek and pray. Amen.
Amen. You can stand and join us for this last song.